Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
You're watching.
We're watching. You're watching Fanboy.
Fanboy. Fanboy.
Fanboy.
Fanboy.
A fanboy, etc.
Fanboy Nation.
Dot. I assume Tom.
The last time I spoke with this man, we were talking about his horror film, KillHer, K-I-L-L, capital H-E-R. Today we are talking about not only the acting world, but also the dog rescue that he works with. Tom Kiesche, how are you today?
I'm doing great. And if I can say that KillHer is all one word, no space.
We gotta make sure we spell it right, and we make sure the title's there.
Exactly. Thank you so much. And I don't only volunteer with rescues, but I volunteer with municipal shelters mostly.
Wow, okay. So you're keeping busy, not only acting and writing and directing, but also, in the pet world as well.
Honestly, more in the pet world than the other world, but yeah, I love it. I love all of it.
So people do give me grief because I am severely allergic to cats, and they look at me and go, "Oh, you're just using that as an excuse to stay away from them." The truth is, I am extremely allergic. You can ask our mutual friend, Roxy Astor. I've had to go running out of the house a couple of times just because of the cat dander. So there is proof. And it's not proof that I love to share with everybody, showing the physical manifestation.
Pet allergies are 100% real. We've had animals adopted by one person at the shelter, brought home to someone who's been around dogs all their life, and them to have a severe allergic reaction to that specific dander from that specific animal. So it is real. And actually the woman I'm currently dating, she's always been allergic to cats. And since she's been at my apartment, she's not allergic to cats. I have a cat. So pet allergies are really kind of interesting. So they're individuals just like we are. So maybe it's not all cats, but maybe it is.
So take us through, obviously we've seen you on Bones, Breaking Bad, Alien Raiders, KillHer most recently. I think you've been on JAG. You've been on quite a few shows building up this career of yours. How did you get involved with the pet rescue and the pet shelters?
So I'm not normal. I've never been normal. It just
you can't be to go into the arts, let's be honest.
You can't be normal. And it took me years to realize I'm just not normal, and I'm okay with it. And I'm more of an artist than anything else. So as an actor, you have choices to make, and that is you can get a day job or a night job, or you can lay by the pool or go to the ocean. However you manage your time and your economics. I was able to survive as an actor, but I had a lot of downtime. And so I've always been a big volunteer with different things. I've volunteered at the Hollywood Y for years, with a lot of theater companies for years, the LA Zoo for a number of years. And I was on a date, and a woman started talking about how she walked dogs for a rescue. And she was a very lovely person, but the date wasn't necessarily going in the right trajectory, or I didn't see a second date. And I thought, oh, maybe that's why I'm on this date. And so I started volunteering with a rescue. And then I would go to that rescue every time I passed by it to go to an audition, because often auditions feel superficial or meaningless, or you spend an hour to cut through traffic only to get there and be there for 2 minutes to then come back into rush hour traffic and be in traffic for an hour and a half. And it allowed me to feel better about myself by being of service to someone other than myself. And then at some point, that particular rescue was very popular all of a sudden, and dogs were going out 3 or 4 times a day. And I bumped into someone at the gym that I was going to, and they mentioned that the dog shelter that they volunteered at, dogs weren't going out for 7 or 8 weeks. 7 or 8 weeks. So I had a conversation with myself and thought I'm needed more there. And I agreed with myself that I would be okay with the fact that a lot of those animals get euthanized. And I started there, and that was in 2017. And since then, I now volunteer with 3 completely different shelter systems. LA Animal City, or LA City Animal Shelter, LA County Animal Shelters, and Long Beach Animal Shelters. And occasionally, or I should say really rarely, do I go up and guest visit at Ventura Animal Shelter. And I should say at the top of this that I'm speaking as an individual in my own individual capacity, just because if I say something, I don't want anyone to say, well, that's not official policy or what have you. So I have to protect myself from my volunteering. So yeah, hopefully that gives you an idea of that beginning anyway.
That's an interesting transition from a bad date to now helping save animals.
Yeah, so it wasn't a bad date because I still think she's a lovely lady. It just wasn't, I didn't feel like she was that into me, or she didn't feel I was that into her. I don't know what it is. Lovely person, everything great about her. But yeah, it was just like, maybe there's another reason I'm here. And before that, a lot of my volunteerism was things that nobody really wanted to do. Raising money, moving things, cleaning things. And I thought, you know, it's time for me to do something I want to do, like, I don't know, pet puppies and cuddle kittens. And the place I was living at the time, and all the places I've lived in Los Angeles, haven't allowed pets. Which I mentioned I have a cat, because at some point, this landlord, I've been here for a while, he's like, okay, enough. Stop asking me about dogs. You can have a cat. And I honestly was like, I don't want a cat. I'm not a cat person. And within a couple months, this cat started showing up at my front door, and then got attacked by coyotes and had to come in for 10 days and hasn't left since. So it's
so you
funny.
were the one adopted.
What's that?
You were the one that was adopted.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, this guy and this little tiny apartment. And he's the best thing that's ever walked into my life.
Well, I'm glad to hear that for you, and that you have the companionship for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. He's taught me more about love and relationships and commitment and all sorts of things. And the animals at animal shelters have taught me more about acting than any acting class I've ever taken, more about humanity than any human I've ever met, almost more about society than anything I've ever seen. It's funny how I'm going to mess up the quote, but Gandhi said something about the way a society treats their public. I should know it by heart, but basically it's indicative of how the society runs.
Right.
And it's so true. They're like little microcosms. And the problems that they're having at shelters now are a lot of the problems we're having in society right now. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, you know, the way we've been treating each other, that, you know, if we don't agree 95% or better with someone's opinion, then they're automatically our enemy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I never thought of that with a dog shelter, but as soon as you said that, we impose our rules and procedures on animals. And if they don't fit in the little box, they're wrong. And a lot of times at a shelter, that means they're going to be euthanized. So dogs communicate with their mouths by nipping and biting. And in our society, that's a big no-no. You know, it truly is fascinating. The one big thing that happened in politics, and I'm not going to get into politics, although, you know, I follow it, is that someone on the Christian right, or this movement, is about how empathy is bad, which it blows my mind, because,
well, that also doesn't work within Christianity.
That's what blows my mind. And yet the lack of empathy is some of the issues that we're having with animals at dog shelters. And the narcissisms that we see in social medias and media and in the world is also what's causing some of the issues at dog shelters or animal shelters. So I didn't know if you want to go down this path, but
I've seen the extremes on both ends, the far left and the far right. So
oh yeah, no, that's what I said. Okay. The empathy thing was just like, it's so I don't know, that like people are saying it's a weakness. That's weird, right? So it's not about politics. It's more about in society now people are anti-empathy.
Mm-hmm.
That's just bizarre to me.
Right. You know, well, I mean, I watched the Jubilee debate with somebody who's become a multimillionaire that they keep all the communists kept calling an elite because he built himself up, yet he was a refugee. And I'm like, how do you call a refugee an elitist?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very strange in seeing human behavior at this point.
We're in a weird spot in the world or in time. And I don't know exactly what the other side looks like at this point.
Well, let's hope the pendulum doesn't keep swinging into the extremes and just kind of settles in the middle.
Yeah. Hopefully it comes back. And the same thing, getting back to dog shelters, same thing with dog shelters is we're seeing this tremendous amount of surrendering of animals currently. And there's many reasons why those things happen. But hopefully at some point that stops the swing. And because there's this idea like, well, let's just jump in. There's this whole concept of no kill, which is a slogan basically that someone came up with that means any system that has a 90% live outcome rate is considered no kill. So 10% of the animals get euthanized or don't make it out, and that's considered no kill, which is challenging for me to get my head around. But then that word sticks into people's minds and they think all shelters are no kill, even if a shelter never said we don't plan to be no kill.
Right.
And so they think, oh, I'm just going to donate or give my animal to the shelter. It's no kill, they'll be fine. And I saw a video once in my life where a dog got rehomed and they had a happy life. So this dog's going to get rehomed and have a happy life. And people start living in this deluded, happy lollipop land. And I posted this on my Instagram just the other day about a woman that came and she was baffled how the dog that her sister surrendered because she had to leave the country for whatever reason. We didn't get into that. She was baffled how this dog was depressed, sad, losing weight. And I kept saying to her, look around. This is horrible. I mean, for animal shelter, it's not horrible, but it's a horrible place. They're in cages on concrete floors. Some of them don't get walked for weeks. She ended up crying in front of me. I started getting a little wet in the eyes. And she said, I can't leave this dog here. I have to make right by this dog. And she ended up adopting her sister's dog. So a good story in the end, but it was just that sort of naivete about like, oh, they'll be fine. They'll just, someone else will take them and someone else will love them. And I can just pretend that the world is all happy and rosy. Wow, we jumped right in.
You have to, because it's a difficult topic. It's not like the Sarah McLachlan commercials where the pencil's sticking out of the dog's eye and it's 30 minutes of tear jerking, but this is a sadness that's there.
Yeah, so I'm currently writing a book, which a friend of mine who's a published author of a dog book herself, and tackling some of this stuff, and I think it'll sell 1 or 2 copies, if that. But the information will be there. And one of the issues I had as a young volunteer or a new volunteer is I had no idea. There was nothing out there that sort of explained where we are, why things are, who people are. I had to learn a lot of techniques on my own. I had to trial and error. I've been on the wrong side of the teeth a few times. And I'm not writing it for any purpose other than to be of service. And I will try to get a publisher for it so it's got a bigger distribution than just me and can help more people. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Just trying to, well, I've always tried to make, as cliche it is, but things better than when I found them, leave them better than when you found them. And I would like to make the shelters better and make that whole situation better. And I continue to try to do that weekly, if not daily.
I appreciate hearing
And I
that.
don't know how that.
Well, no,
Go ahead, I'm
because
sorry.
no, I said I appreciate hearing that because we either see the extremes like I mentioned the Sarah McLachlan commercials, or as you said, the no kill ones where it's almost misleading depending on what they consider no kill percentage wise.
Yeah. Yeah. They leave out that little thing. It's a percentage. It's not an absolute, because when I grew up, no meant zero, nada, zilch.
Right.
And to call it that seems disingenuous. And I'm just going to look down this rabbit hole and just say there's a lot of organizations out there that make a lot of money based on the current poor situations that exist. So, you have a pencil in an eye of a dog. I didn't see that commercial, by the way, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And people send money, and yet there are a lot of people doing the same exact thing that are much smaller, that are doing it out of the goodness of their heart with the money out of their own wallets. Right. It's really kind of a weird whole system and undercurrent and society. And I'm working on a feature film as well, writing it and turning that into a proof of concept short that I hope to do at the end of this year, which has nothing to do with that. It has stuff, well, it's parallel, but I wish I was smart enough to write the spotlight version, like the film feature Spotlight, like that version about animals and society and some of the really questionable things that are out there,
Understandable. And the pencil in the eye thing, I was paraphrasing Patrice O'Neill, the late comic. He made a reference to that.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So I haven't seen a commercial with the dog with the pencil in its eye. It's just, he used an extreme example in his comedy bit, and the commercial is quite extreme.
Oh,
because it runs for like 3 minutes at a time.
Yeah, 100%. And if whoever's listening, if you see an account that's asking for money because then they show you all these horrible pictures, question what that is. Don't just send them money. I've banned many accounts on my account who try to target people who may be sympathetic to animals, and they're always in different countries, and the pictures are horrible, and some of them may be legit, but some of them may not be.
So take us through this before we get back to this. How do you go from karate to a major in biology with a minor in chemistry to acting to now advocacy?
That's a really good question. So I think part of that is I didn't grow up knowing, well, I don't think anyone does, but I didn't really have a direction, and I was trying to figure out who the heck I was, what the heck I was, where I fit in. I had friends in high school, but I didn't really fit in any group. I fit in the groups a little better in college, maybe, but not really. They were kind of groups of people that didn't really fit in. And then I was a bio major because biology in college was the first class that was challenging and I had to study for. And I felt like the classes I didn't really have to study for, that I got A's. Why was I going to college? And that's not to say like I'm some brilliant person. It's just I didn't understand what I was doing in college if I wasn't being challenged. And then I took a acting for TV and film class my second senior year because I transferred and I had to make up credits. And I fell in love with it because it was the first time. It was acting for TV and film. So I would do the work. And when I did the work, my mind got silent. I wasn't thinking about a million things. I was present. I was in the moment. And all I was doing is reacting, listening, being truthful. And when I stepped away from that and watched it on the monitor with the people who were in my class, not only was I hearing them say, wow, he's really good, or you're really good, or that was really good, but for the first time in my life, I felt like, wow, I could be good at something, or he's good at that. Like myself on the screen is different than myself watching the screen. And I also think I found solace, I think I'm using that word right, in the ability to play other people. Because I really didn't know where I was or who I was, and I was trying to be authentic, but I didn't know what my authentic self was or who I was. So I started becoming more authentic, and as I was acting and taking classes and working in Connecticut, I was selling pharmaceuticals at the time because I became a bio major and a chem minor and a communication and business emphasis. I sold pharmaceuticals, and while I was doing that, I was doing acting at night. And I just, the more I started acting, the more I realized good acting isn't hiding. It's actually the opposite of hiding. And it's not about putting on an accent or walking with a limp or wearing a different choice in underwear and socks because that's what your character would do. It's about revealing who you are to the audience through someone else's words and motivations, because I could be a priest. I could be a serial killer. I could be a mechanic. I could be a million things. And what's interesting is, how would I be in those situations? Or if I was put in the position of being George Washington, how the choices that he made, how would that fit onto me and my understanding? And I find that really fascinating at this point. And again, it's not to say you don't do accents. It's not to say you don't walk with a limp or have different kinds of underwear for different characters, but it's just part of a way to get at a truth and be authentic. And now I've gone the other way with acting. Whenever I do an accent, I feel fake. And I have to learn how to let that go. Like, okay, just do it. Feel fake. And how does being fake, what does that look like? Because I myself in real life sometimes feel fake, like, oh, that was weird. Why did I say it that way? And then again, the dog advocacy. Well, let me back a little bit up. I said earlier that maybe I didn't say it, but I love the creativity of it all. I learned that I didn't just love acting, I loved writing. I started writing as an exercise to see what a writer goes through dealing with actors. And in writing, I had several people be like, wow, this is really good. And so I continued writing to develop that understanding of what writers go through. And then I started directing because I was writing now and acting, and I wanted to know what a director thinks about when they get a script or when they have to deal with an actor. And then I did the same thing with editing. I did the same thing with sound design. I did the same thing with singing. And it's all the same in some way, is that you're just telling the truth in a different way with different muscles. And it's all creativity. And what I learned about walking dogs, even with that rescue, is walking dogs can be highly creative. And the more I became more experienced at dog shelters, the harder and more challenging animals I worked with. And I had to learn how to look at them as a puzzle and meet them where they were and see what I could offer them that would help them get out of the shelter. And I would problem solve everything you can imagine at the shelter, how we can increase, how we're getting more volunteers, or how they can get more walks, or we have too many volunteers for the amount of yards, so how can we make that work better? And I just love the problem solving of it all. On my Instagram, I post dog videos of dogs I meet, and I cut the videos, and sometimes I do as many as 20 a day. Sometimes I do 6, and sometimes I try something new or feature something different and tell a different story or try to give a different spin. And to me, again, it's all the same thing. It's an artistry of authentic being that, like, as a high schooler, when I was supposed to cook dinner for my family, because we were all had to do laundry and cook dinner and all that stuff, I learned to love cooking, but I didn't know why. But it was the creativity of cooking. Like, I wasn't crazy about baking, because baking had to be so precise and you had to follow someone else's directions, and everything had to just be like, well, it's like a robotic thing. And someone who loves baking may disagree with me, but cooking, I looked at recipes as suggestions. And every time I'd make something, it was slightly different. And I personally love that. Like, I don't think I'd want to work at a restaurant, which I have done in the past, where you have to make it exactly the same way every day, because that's not creative. But man, do I love just taking something and figuring out my spin on it and the way it affects me, because I've learned that if I show how it affects me, that affects other people. And I feel like that's why a lot of people watch my dog videos who have plenty of dogs already or can't have dogs, or that's why they watch me singing in a closet, which I did for years for fun on YouTube, because it's like, oh, the way he allows himself to be affected affects me and makes me think of how it's relevant in my life or world. I don't know. At some point, I started doing a lot of TV commercials, and I've done close to 100 of them in my life, close to. And a lot of people at that time, when I started, would poo-poo commercials or just do them for the money. But I felt really early on, like, even in the worst house with the worst someone, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, whatever, if someone was kicking their dog or abusing their kid or or having a bad day or having a moment of existential crisis or thinking that I just want to end it all, maybe my commercial pops up, which has nothing to do with me. And maybe on TV, I do something that just makes them stop or smile or change or lighten or give them a different perspective. I think there's value in that. And I can sit and laugh at everything I'm saying and be like, who the blank am I? Like, what the heck? What are you talking about? But yeah, I don't live in the biggest apartment. I don't drive the nicest car, but I do feel like I live a very authentic life.
And that's the most important thing.
I've almost died 3 times in my life. Totally different scenarios, or at least came up with, like, I could die right now, or people have seen something with, like, the person that was in that car should be dead, or a surgeon looked at me and said, we didn't think you were going to make it. And now I'm like, yeah, anytime I could go, and I'm okay with it.
We're glad that you're here. And
well, I appreciate being here, and I'm not in any way like
right
done, but yeah, there is something to being authentic that kind of gives you freedom.
Is there something you would like to tell people that are looking to adopt, and also something that you would like to tell people that either have to surrender the pet to the shelter, or worse, the people that got their kids as a pet for Christmas or for a holiday gift or a birthday gift, and then 3 weeks later go, oh, we can't handle the puppy, here you go?
Yeah. So in the book that I'm working on, which I finished the first, second, and third draft, and now I'm cutting it down, I talk about several of these things, but these are really good questions. So the first thing, and this is in a book I just read, the book of the person that told me I should write a book. I'm reading her book, and she brought up a great point. A lot of times we put out these videos about these dogs that are miserable or about to die or be euthanized. And the people that really get affected by them are not necessarily the best people to take those animals. because maybe they already have the maximum, or maybe they're already extended beyond what they want. And I've said for years, I've been interviewed by different publications, that it's not asking which dog is right for you, it's asking which animal you are right for. So you may want a husky puppy, but you don't want to walk more than 2 blocks a day. That's going to be a horrible fit. That dog's going to eat your lawn furniture out of frustration, because that dog just wants to go that way and doesn't even know why. And you may get a beautiful cattle dog, some type of cattle dog or herding dog. And again, same thing. You might think that walking a half mile a day is enough for that dog. And that dog's going to take it out on kids' ankles and your ankles, or like that dog needs stimulation and work. And it was bred to do things, not to just sit on your couch. So that's number one. Get the dog or get the animal that's right for you, not that you are right for, because it's a lifetime commitment. It's your responsibility for everything. My cat is not easy. He wakes me up every morning. Again, I love him to death, but when I go out of town, I got to find place for him. You know, he requires medical food. They cost, but you got to make the decision. And once you make the decision, let's practice our relationship to responsibility, which is another thing that's sorely missed in society. Second question was, if someone has to surrender.
If they have to surrender, what should they look for?
So I understand that some things are beyond our control. We get animals at the shelter from people who have been arrested, who are going to spend many more months or years incarcerated. We get people who are deported nowadays. Lately, that's a lot more. There's people that go into old age homes or nursing homes or assisted living homes. First, you should have a conversation when you get a pet with your friends and family of what happens if I die or if I become incapacitated. It should be written down somewhere. If you have the funds, you can earmark funds for that animal. If you don't, you can put in sweat equity with friends, with family, with rescues, and make an arrangement with a rescue. So my cat has about 8 different levels of responsibility if I die. Now I probably have to go over that again because I broke up with someone who was at the top. And I'm probably sure she doesn't want my cat. But there are other people I just need to call and say, hey, just want to double check if something happens. Is Timothy Oliver Gavin, Professor of Chaos, is he taken care of? And most people would say yes. And honestly, the more sweat equity you put out in the world, the more people come forward and say, hey, if anything ever happens to your animal, I'm here for you. So that would be number one. Number two, if you've tried everything, you've tried rehoming yourself, and you've tried sanctuaries, and you've offered sanctuaries funds to take your animal, and you don't have funds, and you have to go to a municipal shelter, and you have to go to a certain shelter that is where you live, it's hard. But that doesn't mean your job is over. I don't mean visit that animal, but you can continue to promote that animal. You can give super honest notes to the staff and volunteers so we know how to better talk about that animal. You can give pictures. You can say, hey, you know, like it all has to be true, but this dog does great with other dogs. This dog does not do well with kids, whatever it is, it has to be true, has to be honest. But you can inform and help us help that animal. We may not love you for dumping your dog or surrendering your dog, but we will appreciate the fact that you're trying to help. And also, you can still be on Nextdoor or whatever social media. You can still be telling people about that animal. You can still be contacting rescues that are not in Los Angeles, but somewhere else, and be like, hey, I had to surrender this animal. They're amazing. you know, do you have space and you can continue? So that's another thing. And then the third thing is like, I had again, this isn't going to be in the book, but I have a regret of an animal from when I was a child. I did not come home from college when my father brought my family dog to be euthanized. And I've regretted that moment ever since a minute after she died. Nothing I did that day was more important than me being there. So every so often I realize like I'm doing all this for her. I wrote a one-person show that I sang and told her story in, but you surrender an animal because you have to move and you can't take a dog there. Nothing says you can't volunteer somewhere. Nothing. Nothing says you can't network 50 more dogs to make up for that one animal that you put behind bars. Sorry.
No, I appreciate the sentiment and everything that you're stating, especially for people that want to look into this world. You know, like I at least know myself enough that I don't have the time or the capacity to do it. So, you know, and people get on my case for that. And I was like, but listen, I'd rather know this about myself from now than to be one of those people that decided to get something that they couldn't handle or that they didn't have the time for and then just surrender it.
Yeah. So remember I said you get the animal that's right for you.
Right.
That might be not having an animal.
Yeah.
Before my cat, I did not have an animal. I did not have a dog. I had 10,000 dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I have had dogs in my life that are now in about 18 different states and 3 countries. I haven't heard this in a couple months, but I've had more than 5 people, I don't know how many people, tell me when they play a video of mine, their dog, I might cry again, their dog will run from another room to come to sit. Like I'm talking to the dog on the screen. And their animal will come in and sit when I say sit on the screen. See, this is authentic. I gave up trying to hide.
There's no reason to. Who are you going to impress by hiding?
Nobody cares. You know, I don't care anymore. And again, as an actor, this is what people pay for. Like we have to show the ugliness of a character. When we have private moments on screen, there's a camera capturing it. There's probably 50, sorry, I bumped the mic. There's probably 50 or 100, or if it's small budget, 15 people behind the camera. And we have to pick the underwear out of our butts or sneeze or blow boogers or whatever horrific thing we have to do on screen. We have to be able to do it and be ugly. And it's not so hard for me because I'm not like super pretty or anything, but like there are super pretty people who have been told all their life they have to be pretty, and all of a sudden on a screen, knowing that millions of people might see it, they have to be ugly. Wow, totally different turn there.
All right.
Yeah, we're going. Hey, this is a lot different than our KillHer interview.
It's totally different, you know, but it's something that we needed to talk about, and I'm excited that we got to talk about this. You know, before I do let you go, what is something that, you know, someone that's looking to volunteer at a shelter, what type of shelter should they look into? And where would we be able to find your videos and you on social media to make the connection with you to keep the conversation going?
Okay, I love both of those questions. I printed out a QR code for my link tree. I don't think that'll work, but I don't know if that works or not, but maybe you can put it in
It
the
might be a little
description.
bit blurry, but if you email me the QR code, then
Perfect.
I'll put it in the body of the post.
Perfect. So that'll connect people. I don't use that a lot, but it'll connect people to my social media. I predominantly use Instagram. I got kicked off of TikTok for posting dog videos, the same videos I post on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. Instagram booted me for. I have no idea what that's about. But I'm back on TikTok, but I don't know what I'm going to post because they didn't give me any reasoning. Literally the same videos and the same descriptions. On that, you can also find links to how to see KillHer. You can see some of my past books. At some point, I'll put a link in about the current book I'm writing once it's more baked, more formed. There's also like dog tips on that. There's also links to who to write to make changes in different localities. So that's another thing we didn't talk about is I do a lot of advocacy out there, and I'm currently talking to different city councils about getting them to mandate spay and neuter or microchipping and microchipping, as well as, you know, just like trying to improve the messaging so people know that there are things they can do. So LinkedIn ties to a lot of different things. That's the easiest one to go to, but the Instagram is the one I use predominantly the most, and I'm most communicative on. There was another question in there that you had. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah. So what type of shelter should we look towards if we want to volunteer?
Okay. If you're interested in volunteering, you should have a conversation with yourself. And that is, do I want to? How do I want to? Yesterday on Instagram, I posted about a volunteer at Baldwin Park Animal Care Center who helps the medical team distribute meds to sick animals. And they had to go through the normal channels to do that. They had to go to the website, sign up, do a tour, do an orientation, do the training, learn to work with cats and dogs, do their hours. And then once they got through that, they had to do an additional training to do what they're doing. But that's what they're doing. They're helping the medical team. And from what I was told yesterday, they have a corporate job. And in doing this, they've realized, hey, maybe I want to get into veterinary stuff. And so they're kind of retraining their brain and their ideas and their knowledge base. And they're now considering becoming an RVT, a registered vet technician. So figure out where the nearest shelters are. And knowing that, I volunteer at shelters that are 20 plus miles from where I live, or far along. Long Beach is much further than that, and Ventura is even further than that. And if somebody asks me to go to another shelter and I can be of service and useful, I may even go there. There's my cat speaking. So figure out what's convenient, what you're willing to do, where you're willing to drive. Know that you'll leave your cat home and he'll give you grief when you come home smelling of 1,000 different dogs and cats. Sign up. Know that it's not all rainbows and sparkle ponies. And then just do it. Just do it. Know it's going to take time and that you're going to cry and you may bleed and you may get bruised, and you will learn. If you're good, you will learn every single day you go, even 20 plus years after you first start. And then you will give the gift of knowledge to other people. And at some point, you may look back on 10,000 plus videos on your Instagram, which I don't know what I have now, but I had 10,000 a long time ago, and 80 or 90% of them are animals. And you will be able to scroll for literally a week if you wanted to and see all the lives that you have touched. And there are many volunteers that do more than I do. Well, maybe not many, but there are volunteers that do more than I do. And you can choose that life if you want to, or you can do what you're doing and you say you don't have time, but you're platforming an idea and a person that may influence other people. and maybe you're a lawyer, and maybe you can volunteer your time to consult with volunteers so they don't get squeezed out of certain systems or have to sign bad contracts. Or maybe you're a million other things that you can use what you know officially or unofficially and help the cause. Maybe you're a great speaker and you go to city councils and talk about spay, neutering, and microchipping. Because when I go there, I'd literally have to say, I'm speaking as an individual in my own individual capacity to protect myself from not getting kicked out as a volunteer. And so by doing that, I just took everything that I could say as a volunteer and I threw it away, and I'm just a member of the public speaking.
Well, Tom Kiesche, I really want to thank you today for your time. We got to get together in person. You know, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. We got to do this more often.
I'm going to hold you to that.
All right.
I will totally sit down with a cup of coffee or a tea or another beverage and have a conversation with you off a microphone. I would
just
love
remember
that.
the lint brush.